Men of Reddit, what made you lose interest in a girl you wanted to ask out? When I asked her about herself, she was happy to tell me all about it, but anytime I tried to share anything about myself, she seemed immediately disinterested, so I figured she just found me boring. I was talking to this one woman who I asked out on an app. She said yes, so I asked her if a particular day and time worked. She replied with, "For what?" I gave her another chance and she asked me to call her. She picks up and says, "Hey, so what's the deal? Why'd you call?" I hung up and blocked her number. Honestly, I forgot until this comment, but at the time, I really thought I was losing my mind. Turns out I could not fix her, and instead unfixed myself in the process. Sometimes the cost to repair is too high, which is why I have a new dryer and no girlfriend right now. When the paint is cherry, but the frame is rusted. Everyone thinks I can fix them, and never realizes they can make me worse. My friend was on a bus when he saw this beautiful girl. His interest was obvious, as he kept looking at her. After she got off the bus, and the bus started going again, another passenger turns to him and says, "What are you doing? Get off the bus and ask her out!" They got the bus driver to stop, and he lets him out. He asks her, and they start dating. And then a few years later, they get engaged. They get married. But the night before, at her bachelorette party, one of the girls at the party was teasing the soon-to-be bride in a very explicit manner. And they actually kissed and made out. Within a week of their wedding, she basically tells him, "I've made a mistake. I was on the fence as to whether or not I was into women or men, and that night convinced me." So they had their marriage annulled. Poor guy was devastated and angry. It's too bad it was right after the wedding, but at least she found out and they could end things before they went even further. She announced she was pregnant and wasn't sure who was the dad. Figured it would be best to avoid getting mixed up in that drama. When I was 16, I had a crush on a girl from my church. We talked almost daily for like 2 weeks, until one day she told me her parents weren't home and invited me over. I hopped on my bicycle and rode the 5 miles to her house. We sat on the couch and talked, eventually started making out, and things had just started getting good when there was a knock on the door. She got herself presentable and went to the door, where some dude was waiting. She let him in, introduced me as a friend from church, and told me that this guy was her boyfriend. They went into her bedroom and shut the door, leaving me alone on the couch. And within 5 minutes, I could hear grunting and moaning. At that point, I noped out of there. The following Wednesday night was the youth group meeting at the church. There was some free time afterwards where we all hung out in the common area, so I went over and confronted her about what happened. She made excuses and overall acted pretty nonchalant about the whole thing, which set me off. I rather loudly told her in front of everyone what kind of person I thought she was, and stormed off outside. Behind the church was a wooded area with a pond, and there was a trailer on the pond, so I decided to go for a walk to cool down. After a couple minutes walking the trail, the girl's best friend came running up behind me. She'd obviously heard the entire exchange, and asked her friend what it was all about. Then came outside to check on me. She did her best to comfort me, and we talked until it was time to go home. We continued to stay in touch on a regular basis, and she eventually admitted that she'd had a crush on me for months, but was too shy to act on it. I asked her out, and we ended up dating for almost 2 years. Aside from my current wife, she was the best relationship I'd ever had. This girl in high school kept grabbing my leg and saying I was cute and all sorts of things like that. So we started dating. We had 3rd and 4th period together out of the 6 total periods in the day. During 5th period, I went to go to the bathroom and saw her doing the same thing with another dude. After class, I asked him how long she'd been doing that to him, and apparently it was 6 months. I told him everything, and we both stopped talking to her. And we became good friends. She cut off the bartender while he was telling her about the specials, and said she didn't need food mansplained to her. The bartender was my friend and a very talented bar manager, and the menu was entirely his, which he was very proud of. I brought her there specifically for that level of personal service. She was visiting from out of town. I dropped her off at the hotel after, and I told her I was tired and went home. So embarrassing. Dude, I would have told her exactly what you told us in this comment. Waiters and waitresses are supposed to explain the menu, and it is standard procedure to go into detail about what the specials are. She wouldn't have said the same thing to a woman explaining the menu to her. This is just misandristic on her part. But to play devil's advocate here, if the bartender was explaining the menu in more depth than a normal waiter would, because he was proud of the menu that he'd created, at the end of the night, just tell her that, and in the same breath, tell her to stop judging a book by its cover just because it has a schlong. I know lots of great women, and girls like this one in this story do them a terrible disservice by just making women in general look bad. So guys, and the very small demographic of women that watch my videos, don't stand up for this sort of behavior on a date, or just hanging out with someone. Don't let people with this sort of attitude force themselves on society any more than they already have. I watched her yell out at Jimmy John's employee because she wanted to make sure they use fresh bread. When we drove away, she said fast food employees were stupid and never listen. What appalling and snobbish behavior. It was such a shame. Such beauty was wasted on such an ugly person. This girl I worked with and I got along great. Talking to her one day, she says she's never dated anyone. I asked her why. She says, because I haven't met anyone that can afford me. I have expensive tastes. I was 20, broke, and in college. We made the same amount, and that felt like her rejecting me without me even having to ask. To be honest, even if I had the money, I'm not the person for her. Completely different attitudes on finances. I'm pretty feminist, but ended a date after she went off about men are trash, but not you. I told her I don't like bigotry in any way, and asked her what she would do if she was with a guy who talked about women the way she did men. I paid the tab and left. Mad respect for this guy, and I love the way he put it. I don't like bigotry in any way. And then turning it on them to see how they would feel in the same situation if the roles were reversed. I was the one asking all the questions. The only question I'd get from her was, how was your weekend? And then she'd interrupt with something about hers. Years ago, a coworker of mine was my work wife. We had a blast together at work and work functions, and I was totally head over heels for her. She was in a relationship that was on the rocks and only really held together by a lease they couldn't get out of at the time, and heavily implied that once she got out of the lease and her own place, that it was on. She signed another lease with the guy. It was for a 3-bedroom apartment, and she knew I was looking for a place to move at the time, so she tried suggesting I move in. I just really wasn't comfortable with the whole situation, and she got very upset that I wasn't. I tried explaining that I wasn't comfortable with her now ex living with her, and I wasn't going to move in with her and start a romantic relationship with her. That had disaster written all over it to me. I would have definitely been a roommate or a romantic partner with her, but I would not have moved in together romantically with her without dating first, and I wasn't going to be a roommate with her and her ex. They ended up getting married. To clarify, there was no misunderstanding between her and I about the possibility of a relationship. She flat out said she wanted to be with me and that they were breaking up and already done when we started hanging out together outside of work. He knew about me and also seemed to have other women around. My mental health and well-being is fine, and this was almost a decade ago. I'm happily married to the love of my life now. And yes, she and the other guy are still married and have 2 beautiful children together. Hopefully they worked everything out. I haven't obviously been around them much since then and only see what they post on social media, and we all know how misleading that can be. But as far as what she was thinking during all this, who knows? She was 20 and just trying to figure life out. We've all been there. I think she was angling for a cage match. I think this guy dodged a bullet. That would have been a real awkward love triangle. Especially since, after reading this story, it seems like her and her ex weren't over each other. I met and fell for this punk girl back in the 90s. We planned to go to a punk show gig at this venue that was way out in the woods on someone's property. That sounded fine. Shows in our area were often like this. Then the more she talked, and the more I learned, I soon realized it was a gathering of skinhead punks. And then I learned she was pretty involved in that scene. Instantly uninterested. This girl who I was friends with, and I kind of rebounded into back in the day, were on and off for about 4 months, and I was like, hey, this is clearly lasting a while. Do you want to try an actual date? She said yes. I got all dressed up, and she shows up looking like it was a rough day of chorin', out on the farm. She then proceeds to tell me how she'd never seen me that way until we slept together, and how she was really interested in a list of guys she gave me, and every single guy on there was a friend of mine, and 2 of them were my roommates. I walked away thinking, casual it is then. If even that. She kind of fell for me and tried to ruin my life when I told her I no longer wanted anything serious with her. I guess that's the thing that made me immediately lose interest in this girl. She seemed all there at work, but when I dug deeper, her personal life was a fireball of drama. I noped the heck out of wanting to date her. Made me not want to be a work friend either. We had been talking and going on dates for about 2 months. We had the exclusivity talk moving to relationship, but I could feel her getting cold feet or something along those lines. I had 2 weird instances that kind of made me lose interest. The first one was she had a random dude visit from out of town so they could go watch a basketball game. It went until 2 a.m. or so, and she tried to hide the fact that she was even hanging out with someone. I had no issue with that, and even have girlfriends myself, but the way she tried to hide it rubbed me the wrong way. The other time was I caught her still on a dating app when we met. We were hanging out on her couch, and a notification popped up. I confronted her about it, and she said some sort of excuse and half-assed apology. A week later, I again see she has it on her phone, and catch her lying again. At that point, I was done. Some other things added to it too, but those were the 2 instances that really stand out. She had made false R allegations. First of all, you're a terrible human. You ruin a person's life. On top of that, you make all real R allegations less credible. Second, why in the world would you think I'd want to be around you if you might falsely accuse me of that if things don't work out? And just to be clear, she made the false R claim to an unknown guy before we met. This was a first date conversation, and there was never any contact after that. Wait, so she made that accusation, and then proceeded to talk about how she made a false accusation like that as a first date topic? Like she was proud of it? Holy. Forget dodging a bullet. That's like a whole cannonball dodged. She said she wants to date around for a year. Poor girl just got out of a serious relationship and isn't ready to date one-on-one. One of the better gals I've met. However, I've done so much work on myself this past 18 months from a bad breakup that I understand where she's coming from in wanting to wait till she gets serious with anyone. You have to relearn who you are and what you want when you come out of a long-term relationship. They actually do change people for better or for worse. I want to respect her wishes. We all need to heal in our own way. I also respect myself as well. I'm not going to be someone's rebound. I've completely recreated myself for the better and stopped disrespecting myself since my last ex left me 18 months ago. I'm a new man who has great things going for him. If someone isn't an absolute yes when it comes to being with me, then it's an absolute no from me. Don't ever be with someone who's not crazy about you, and vice versa. The right person at the wrong time is the wrong person. This girl will continue to date others, and I'll continue to date others as well. I know what I want, and am confident in finding the right person. I am ready for a relationship, and am not going to wait for someone to make up their mind after dating and or getting together with others for a whole year. No thanks. I wish her the best, but I'd be disrespecting myself to hang around. We actually went out. To the movies. Went to see The Crazies. She was cute and funny. Then she answered a call in the middle of the movie and didn't just say, "I'll call you later," and instead had the conversation. If it was an emergency, I get it, but leave the theater and take the call. But no, it was just a friend that wanted to call her because they were bored and wanted to chat. And she did. In the middle of a full theater. Well, I excused myself to the bathroom, then got in my car and left her there. She called me like 20 minutes later asking where I went, and I told her I left because you answered a call in the middle of the movie. There is a special place in hell for people who do that. Ruined everything for me. And that was the end of that. She slept with and married my dad. A couple years later, I got wasted and went to bed with her. Confessed to my dad, they divorced. I'm aware that I'm a piece of shit. Self-awareness is important, but let's not discount her role in this. Her social media was full of man-hating posts. She was one of those types that would screenshot her conversations and post them. She would brag about leaving dudes on Red, but at the same time complain about how she couldn't find a good man. I didn't want that kind of negativity in my life, no matter how juicy the booty was. She found out I liked her through someone else telling her, and then she started being really mean to me for reasons that I don't fully understand. It's like she decided to do everything she could to kill my attraction to her. It worked, but I would have preferred just having a conversation instead of the hurt feelings and the damaged friendship. We were pretty close too before she discovered I had feelings for her. She slept with 8 guys at a party when we were just starting to get to know each other. I don't want to be with someone that's that open, giving access to everyone. Apparently, I was an a-hole for no longer being interested in her. Honestly, as a woman, I just gotta respect the dedication and endurance. I go 3 rounds with the hubby and I feel like falling asleep in a bathtub of ice. She was awesome, very free-spirited. So much so that she's hours late for everything and won't commit to a date until an hour before. So it was just very frustrating trying to plan things. Alright, now we hop into the rapid fire segment of the video for stories too short to make a full entry out of, but too good to be left out. Let's jump in. She wanted to experiment with other girls and told me to wait until she was into guys again. She video called me while driving under the influence of multiple substances. She was an 8, but her hygiene was a 2. I offered to buy her a coffee, and she lectured me about the patriarchy. She told me anything animated, TV or movie related, was meant for children. I saw her going down south on another dude. She played too hard to get. I saw how she treated a waitress. Trash-talking her friend behind her back. She told me there was some other guy she wanted to try first. My interest in her was instantly gone. So guys, that's it for today, and remember, if there's anything you take from this, it's just that you gotta show yourself a little respect, and don't go for someone who's not a good fit just because they're fun to look at. There's lots of great girls and guys out there, so don't settle for ones that aren't. With that said, I'm ReddList. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care of yourselves. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.